Hello, everybody. This is a shaven Hondo Carpenter. If you know what I'm talking about, go back and watch Wentz podcast. It is great to be on with my good friend Matt Hladek from the mensjournal.com. And of course, I'm your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI. We want to start this morning by giving a big shout out to a guy that's a major Raider fan in West Virginia. Brian, we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. You got a wonderful bride in Keisha, and we're going to keep standing with you as you go through your health battle. Matt, I want to get right into this. The Raiders, they needed that win to stop the bleeding, to stop the slide, just to get some positivity. And yep, they beat the worst team in the NFL. This is what they're supposed to do. I understand that, but you never apologize for a win in the NFL.
Definitely not. They were home, like we had said last week. The Titans coming off a improbable win against Arizona. Didn't that's a game you have to win. The Titans aren't good enough right now to win back-to-back games. So the Raiders took care of business. Listen, they have a tough one this weekend, obviously, and I'm not saying that they're going to get back into the playoff race or anything like that, but they absolutely needed that win to get some good vibes and, like you said, to kind of stop the bleeding and just kind of stabilize things.
For you, what's your thoughts on the Raiders 6 games in? I mean, what's your just general fans want you to go out and sign this guy or sign that guy, but at this point in the year, it's not like there are great players that are just growing on a tree. And yes, you can make trades, but it's not like you can go draft more players. The bulk of you can go sign some guys off some practice squads and certainly, investigate and all of that. But what are your thoughts on the Raiders right now?
I think, I thought at this point they would probably be 3-3, potentially 4-2 if things were working out. Obviously not only 2-4. I think the main concerns I have are a little bit like everybody. I think, obviously offensively, you haven't seen what you'd hope to see from them with Geno Smith. Ashton Genty's had been a little fits and starts. He's had some big moments, but also the overall numbers aren't as good as as they aren't indicative of his talent level, I think. So I think you want to see more there. Although again, like I think that a lot of it has to do with the way defenses have played them or the offensive line more than Ashton Genty. So I think that the offense has mostly kind of been what's left most to desire through the first 6 weeks. Because I mean, there was a winnable game in week 2 against the Chargers where they only scored 9 points. They get blown out by the Colts 40-6, and the way the Colts are playing now, that's a game that the fact they lost isn't that big of a deal, but the fact that it got as ugly as it did was a reflection of the offense playing poorly and setting the Colts up with short field a couple of times too. And then the offense, I tweeted at you during the game last week. I think that drive in the start of the second half was like the platonic ideal of what you want to see from the Raiders and what Pete Carroll wants to see, where, it's focused on Ashton Genty. He got the ball almost every play, whether it was whether it was running or receiving. And they kind of grinded out the clock and took control of the game with that score. So I think that was a good, baseline to see. But obviously you get a bigger test this week.
So they tried to swing for the fences and didn't get Ben Johnson. I think that was a blessing. Just talking to people around the NFL, good guy. I think there's some real concerns about what he's going to be like as a head coach. So then they go and they get another big offensive mind in Chip Kelly. And here's a question that I have for you. You're not paying Patrick Graham, humongous money. You go pay $6 million large per year to go get Chip Kelly, and you look at his offense has left a lot of people wanting more. Do you put the large onus of this on Chip and his offense, or do you put it where do you put it? Where do you put the underachievement at? I mean, to his credit, Pete said turnovers, but there's a lot of questions about Chip's scheme right now and how it's playing out on Sundays. Your thoughts there?
I think it's a collective thing. I think Geno Smith hasn't played particularly well. I think the line at times hasn't played particularly well. I think that's affected the run game, like we said with Ashton Genty. I think that maybe there's and we touched on it a little bit last week. There's a kind of a feeling out period with Chip Kelly's scheme and and what Pete Carroll wants to do, or with the personnel of the Raiders. So I think that has something to do with it too. I don't think it's one thing you can really pinpoint and say, it's Geno Smith, he's washed up, or Chip Kelly was a bad hire, or we have to get rid of all the offensive linemen. I think it's each unit kind of bears responsibility there, and I think that you'll see. I think this bye is really important coming up for the Raiders because obviously I'm thinking they'll lose at Kansas City, but then when you get that bye, you come back with some other tough games. And the way they respond, I think, coming out of that bye, home against Jacksonville, at Denver, will tell you a lot. I think if they can get some offensive things figured out, they'll be a better team over the last 10 games.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. To me, I don't think there's one thing. I know that nobody likes to hear that. Everyone likes to think there's one
Yeah.
thing, go fix this, and everything falls in line. I think it's, I think it that Chip's some of his scheming and play calling is certainly questionable, but I'm not calling for him to be fired. Obviously, we know the guy knows offense. But I think it's been more of a sum of the parts. It's not just a one thing.
Yes, I would agree. And I find myself sometimes as a fan, you kind of get caught up and you're like, just change this or get rid of this coordinator or this player or this quarterback and everything is all good. Like it's a magic, kind of salve, but it doesn't necessarily work like that.
Yeah, agree with you 100%. All right, I want to turn to the NFL because they want parity and they want it bad. They want everybody being mediocre so every fan base is involved and every fan base is engaged. I had an interesting conversation the other day sitting in a doctor's office with a doctor who thinks it's hurt the NFL. I think it's helped the NFL. But I'm a I'm a football fan, I'm not a team fan. What say you?
It's interesting because I do think that the overall parity year to year in terms of you get the bottom half of each playoff bracket gets churned over pretty much year to year. There's always two or three new teams. I think that helps the league for sure because I think that it gives fan bases hope that it can be a pretty quick turnaround. We may be bad this year, but if we get a new quarterback and some new pieces, we can be a wild card team or a playoff team. So I think that's a good thing. Week to week parity, I think, helps. But also, I see where that guy's coming from. It can harm because I think that when you don't have, and right now, I feel like there's no great team in this league right now. I think the Bucks have the best record, and the Bucks look great right now. But they're also dealing with some injuries, and we have to see how that plays out long term. Everyone would have said the Bill, and the same thing with us. Apologies to the Colts. Colts also are 5-1, and the Colts look really good too. I think they could be a force in the AFC, but we have to see them against some better competition first. Everyone would have said the Bills. Everyone's, including myself, would have said the Bills and the Eagles, like we said a couple weeks ago, probably the two best teams, and they've each lost two in a row. And I think that parity. Well, I do think the parity is good for the league in terms of it keeps most fan bases active and interested outside of maybe the few at the bottom of the barrel. I can understand where that guy's coming from, where the parity might be too much at times, because if you feel like if you feel like everyone's pretty good, then you feel at times like no one's that good. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody that and you wonder if the quality of play is where it should be. And also it can frustrate fans because fans are seeing their team look like world beaters one week and they don't look that great the next. So I think parity is a little bit of a double-edged sword for the league.
I'm going to turn to a subject that I know that is top of mind to a lot of teams. Okay. You look at the Lions Kansas City Chief games, and there's very strong questions about the NFL's involvement, officiating. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they're out there. And it's not a perception that I think is good for the league. I talked about it last year. I'm talking about it this year. I'm not saying there is a bias or isn't a bias. I'm just saying this is not a good look for the NFL at all. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm telling you, everyone is talking about it. Chiefs fans are talking about it. It's ridiculous. The other 31 teams saying there's a bias. It's not a good look for the NFL.
It's not, and I think that this was a big topic towards the end of last season into the playoffs, where I think Patrick Mahomes addressed it. This perception that the Chiefs get home cooking from the refs, and the refs are favorable to them. Um, Listen, does it exist in every sport? Where people think that the big teams get the calls. It used to be for college basketball for years it was Duke basketball, and in um, the NBA people said the Lakers and the Celtics and teams like that. So this always kind of exists in sports, but it's never a good thing, I think, when it becomes this much of a topic and it's discussed so widely after a standalone game in prime time. Again, do I think there was impropriety with the officials last Sunday night in Kansas City? I don't, but I think that the topic is one the NFL would definitely prefer to have out of the public's conscience as soon as possible.
All right, got a couple questions from emailers. First of all, first one comes from Harry L. in San Luis Obispo, California. Okay. Hondo, I really enjoy Matt from Men's Journal. I've been a longtime Men's Journal reader and was super excited when he joined. Please let him know I read all of his articles and I appreciate him. I got a question for the two of you. Do you think what Bill Belichick has done in North Carolina has ruined his chances of returning to the NFL? And if you do feel so, can you discuss it? I'll get your opinion. I'll give you mine.
Well, thanks, Harry. I appreciate the love from you and the readership. Um, I think it. I don't think his chances of returning to the NFL were all that great before he went to UNC. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have gone to UNC. But I do think it's harmed him. I think that when you see not just the fact that they're losing, but it seems like there's dysfunction. It seems like his chosen group of people he wants to work with are under fire, whether it's, Mike Lombardi or whether it's some of the people he chose for his coaching staff. I think the Jordan Hudson stuff on the side doesn't help. So, yeah, do I think that he was bound for the NFL again anyway? I'm not sure. But if he had coached well and things were going smoothly at UNC, could it have maybe helped him have a recovery chance with the league? Perhaps. I think this definitely hurts it. It doesn't help at all.
All right. And then here is another one that came in, and this is from Christine M. And she is in New Jersey. Christine M says, Hondo, I'm a Penn State graduate, and I cannot believe we just fired James Franklin. I'd love to hear you and Matt discuss what you think of him as a potential NFL coach. I would love for him to get my Giants job. So I'm going to go first on this one. Go back and Google his first Big Ten media days, and you'll see me post them up. We've talked about that a lot. I am not a James Franklin fan. I'm a big fan of Penn State, but I have said since they hired him at Penn State that every Big Ten fan should be donating, because if Penn State goes out and gets a legitimate coach, that is a powerhouse program that has been sitting dormant. It is not good for the rest of the Big Ten. If they have a real coach, if I'm a Giant fan, I don't want him anywhere near my sidelines. He can get coaches to coach, and he certainly can recruit. But I don't trust him making any decision as a head coach and beating the people you're supposed to. Okay, great. That's what you're supposed to do, but that doesn't win championships. To me, if you're a Giants, there's some franchises, okay, but the Giants are one of those franchises. You're not in it to beat who you're supposed to. You're in it to win championships. I can't stand James Franklin as a head coach. I'm not a Giants fan, but I would not want him anywhere near the sidelines. I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, I think if the Giants do move on from Brian Dable, I think they have to get somebody who's done it at the NFL level and had some success anyway. So that would take out James Franklin because he's never coached at the NFLO. Um, I think that like you said, he obviously can recruit well, and he can, he serves as kind of the face of the program and gets kids to, come in and can do all those things. And he did win a lot of games at Penn State. He beat who he was supposed to beat. But that's a program that when that was good at first when he was rebuilding it. But after a while, you have to beat the Ohio States. You have to beat the Michigans more consistently than he did. You have to show up and beat some of these teams to get, to really feel like you're accomplishing something there. And then once he stopped beating the teams he was supposed to beat, losing those two in back-to-back weeks, UCLA and Northwestern, it kind of became untenable. I think there's a limit with him as a head coach. I think you've seen that limit in terms of he is who he is. His teams are always kind of the same year in, year out, the same results, same kind of play on the field, same questions about him. So I would not be itching to hire him if I'm the Giants or an NFL team.
Or a college team. I don't want him anywhere near any of that. All right. Last thing I want to talk to you about, and we're going to hurry. I know you're up against the time crunch. But to me, the NFL, like any organization, is really hurting itself. So let's use Matt Rule. Okay. I think Matt Rule is a great coach. I have felt Matt Rule is a great coach since he was at Temple. Carolina hires him. He's starting to get that franchise turned around, but fans get impatient. They fire him. You go look at what he's doing in Nebraska. He's building a powerhouse there. A lot of people, I don't want that guy to go to Penn State. I think he will, but I don't want him at Penn State because I'm a Spartan. But you see this a lot in the NFL. Okay, it's not working. Fire a guy after 18 months, fire a guy after. There's no building anymore. And I mentioned on the podcast yesterday, one of the things I think that helps Green Bay is they have a bunch of owners. And so they pick a guy and say, okay, you're our quarterback of the future. Go sit on the bench. Just go sit on the bench and learn. And they're able to develop. How much does this boom, hot take? Oh, we're getting killed on social media. We got to make a change. How much is this external pressure hurting the game as much as parity? How much is it hurting the National Football League?
I think that it does kind of, especially depending on how much ownership buys in and how much ownership, kind of caves to the whims, so to speak, of the fans. It can hurt. It can hurt the product. It can hurt franchises. I think it hurts quarterbacks, especially. I think because you've seen, although in general, I think being in bad spots and bad situations and bad coaching kind of hurts quarterbacks more. Sometimes when you see quarterbacks rushed in as the savior and rushed in as, the difference maker and they're not ready, it can really put them behind the eight ball and be a detriment to their development. And also, I think you see it hurts, it can hurt coaches because you don't kind of get that leash or you don't kind of get that, time to build. But at the same time, I'm not sure if there's any going back. There's no going back. I mean, I think we're in a society where gratification is more instant, and we've seen in the NFL quicker turnarounds than than ever. You see teams getting it done in a year or two, so everyone's kind of expecting that to happen. Whereas it used to take sometimes 3 or 4 years for you to get your program and your foundation set. You don't have that time anymore. You have to have some success pretty much in the first 2 years to get the fan base off your back. And if you have anything in the first 3 years, you're pretty much screwed. So I think that that's just the way of the nature of the business at this point.
I got to tell you, you look at all these quarterbacks going other places and having success. I remember saying to someone close to Aaron Glenn when he left the Lions to go take the Jets job, Why go take a job that is not going to work? And I think Aaron Glenn can be a great coach. I am a buyer on him, but I think he's going to fail miserably with the Jets because I think the Jets are a loser franchise. To me, it's not one that has an atmosphere conducive, and so sometimes it's just not getting the opportunity. It's getting the
Good
opportunity at the
opportunity.
right place. We see it with
Mhm.
quarterbacks. I think you guys are going to go through it. I think Jackson Dart has the potential to be a really good quarterback. You know how much I am on Jack. I believe in Jackson Dart. But man, in that New York environment or any NFL environment right now, I mean, people are turning on Cam Ward, which is ridiculous to me. Just to me, that is what really sets Green Bay up to be successful. And I think it's a great concern. All right, last thing. Substantive statement for the Raiders. I don't expect them to win. I think they could. I think they have the talent. But they just need to go up there, and it needs to be a substantive statement going into the bye week. Look, we're making progress. We're moving forward. I think that is the summary of this game. Raider fan doesn't want to hear that, but they need a substantive statement. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Raiders, it's just win, baby, not just moral victories, baby. So I understand where
Right.
the fan base is at, and I think that
Totally
again,
do.
coming from the Giants who have lost a lot recently too, you're tired of the moral victories, but I think that you want to see at least some carryover from winning a game you were supposed to win against Tennessee to playing a favored opponent, tough on a road environment. We saw them win 2 years ago when no one thought they won on Christmas with Aiden O'Connell as quarterback and interim Antonio Pierce as head coach. So crazy things happen week to week in the NFL. But I think that as long as you could come out of that game thinking, all right, we were in it with the Chiefs and we look better than we have. We look like we might have something to build on coming out of the bye. I think you're okay with that as a Raider fan.
Yep, I agree. They've got to be able to show. And again, when I say they got to be able to, it's not like Pete's got to do this to save his job. I don't mean any of that crap. I'm not participating in that. But they need to be able to make some substantive statements to their staff. I mean, to their fan base. Matt, I know you got to run. I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. Go to si.com/NFL/Raiders. And Matt, tell them where to find you on Twitter.
You can find me at Matt Hladick 919 at MATTHLADIK 919, and I'm always on there, chatting about the NFL and college football and everything in between.
Thanks, Matt.